Welcome everyone to Coaching in the Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about how to prevent burnout, how to not allow burnout in our life, and then how to get rid of toxic people. There's so many different things that we're going to learn today. And all of those things are going to be relevant for either your life or someone you love dearly. So I encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this video with someone who might be going through this type of situation. Now, when we get to the idea of what burnout is, it's one of those things where I encourage people try not to get to burnout, because burnout can be one of those things that can take so long to recover from. It might take a week, it might take a year. We don't necessarily know how long it's going to take. And I think for me, one of my deepest burnouts might have been in college or in my teaching career. And I think I was out of it for maybe a month to 3 months. And I just didn't know what was wrong. I was still doing all the things I was supposed to do. I was going on hikes, I was going to school, doing the work, but everything was just piling up. And though I was able to keep up with everything, I was barely holding on mentally. So burnout is going to be one of those things that we have to get a good understanding of very quickly before it can spiral out of control. So I decided I needed to have someone come on and speak about what burnout is, and then who has experienced burnout to a deep degree in their life. So I have Sarah Falciani, who's going to be coming on. She's a mental performance specialist and coach. She has done so many different things in her life, and her and I had a great conversation about burnout, about getting rid of toxic people and setting boundaries. Because when we can set boundaries for ourselves, then we can get into a better place, right? We are giving ourselves a space, saying this is where I want to grow, this is who I want to become, and we don't allow an outside force to get in our way. So let's get into that interview with Sarah and myself. Welcome, Sarah Falciani, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So we're going to be talking about what you do. You are a mental performance specialist and coach. In your own words, can you tell people what that is and how you help them?
Mm-hmm. So I specialize in helping people pleasers or individuals who have been in abusive situations, whether it's an abusive situation with their career, abusive relationships, anyone who describes themselves as a people pleaser who struggles with boundaries. That is what I do. So I work with them on their mental performance, their approach to work, their approach to relationships, their approach to their relationship with themselves, help them develop sense of self-worth, communication skills, and boundaries with themselves and other people. So that's really the meat and potatoes of what I do. And I love my work.
And where would you say that stems from? Them being with toxic people or them not being able to set boundaries? Does that stem from like childhood, or maybe they don't have the proper, I guess, guardian figures to look up to and say, well, this is a proper relationship, so I'm just going to figure it out as I go through life?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Most of it does stem from childhood. The bulk of the clients that I've had who have struggled with burnout in their career, for example, were raised in situations where the only model that they had was burnout culture, was, a parent figure who had to work and work and work X number of hours a day, never home for meals, constantly sacrificing in their personal life or their relationship with their child in order to put food on the table. So they grow up thinking that that's normal. And when you grow up thinking that's normal, you don't realize there's another way to approach it. So it's like their belief system kind of wires to look for that and see that as normal. So it's all about rewiring the brain and getting them to look at a different perspective and realizing there's a different way to live.
And that's difficult though. Right now in our economy, inflation is high, food costs are going up, gas is going up. There's so many extra costs. So now mom and dad have to go work because there's not going to just be one parent in the household just working. It goes beyond now to, yes, we understand that we have to have someone in the household helping these children realize, okay, we're kids, we're growing up. This is not how it should be, or this is how it should be, right? So if you want to say dad should go to work, mom should stay home, right? Whatever you view it, it could be mom's going to work, dad's staying home. It doesn't matter the order of who goes to work, but having at least some type of parental type of foundation is going to be helpful for those kids. We're moving into a society or to an economy maybe that it's going to be difficult for parents to do that, even though they might have this knowledge, have that experience in their own childhood, And now they don't want that for the kids, but they don't have a choice. What do you say to those people who have to work, have to put food on the table, but they still want to be there and maybe not have their kids see the way they grew up? And so they don't end up having relationships that are toxic or boundless.
Well, we all have bills to pay, right? So it's very, 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 very rare that you see a situation where one person has the luxury of staying home completely and the other person goes to work. I was raised in that environment. My father worked, slaved away in the construction industry. My dad's my hero. And then my mom stayed home and raised six of us and homeschooled us on top of all of that. So that's the model I grew up with. But for individuals, it's not so much someone having to stay home and another person going. It doesn't matter whether both people are working, one person's working, you're raised in a single parent household, perhaps. It's all about watching your relationship as the adult with work and your relationship with your time. That is what the children are looking at. So it doesn't matter if the kids in school all day and both parents are working until late or they have juggling schedules. It doesn't matter what it is, but how is the parent talking about work around the kid? How are you talking about money and budgeting and finances when you're with your kid? Are you able to set boundaries with work so that when you leave work and you come home, you're fully present for your relationship with your child? And you are communicating with them that, look, if you want if say they're a preteen or in high school or starting to think about a career for themselves, having these conversations with your kids where you go, look, this is the reality of the economy. This is the reality of money. This is the reality of work. If you want a future that's different, these are maybe some of the choices you're going to have to make. These are some of the boundaries you're going to have to set. It's normalizing having conversations like that instead of coming at it from the perspective of, I just got to go to work to pay the bills. And then you bring that, oh, I just got to go to work. You're thinking about work when you're home with your kid. You're not having these conversations with your kid because you're too busy thinking about work. So that's where the boundaries come in, and really not sacrificing and not going to work, but instead modeling a healthy relationship with your career for your child.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that statement there, where we model what we want them to see. And then even though we might be struggling, we might be having a hard time, we might not even love our job. If we can be in a different state of mind, saying, make sure you go to school, you find something you love to do, and then pursue that. Maybe maybe a parent can be in a position that they don't necessarily love, but it pays the bills. So they do that self-sacrifice almost to, have their children kind of like pass the torch, the baton to them so they can be elevated when they grow up. So they're going to be in a better position. It's something my parents did, where it was like, okay, we want our kids to be in a better place than where we were. So we're going to sacrifice. We're going to work 2-3 jobs, and we're going to give them a better start. And it helped. Not every parent can mentally think about that, because stress is one of those things that just weighs so heavy on us, where we say, I'm not going to act today. So that's like going into depression. And they might work. And eventually they hit that burnout. And burnout is one of the most difficult things to recover from. And when we have that burnout, we have to know how to get out of it quickly, and then know how to mitigate it so it doesn't come back as frequently. And I know something you do, you help people with extreme burnout. If you can, do you have any like tips or tricks how to help people with burnout or to avoid it in general?
Always. I've got so many things to say. They all tried to rush towards my mouth at the same moment too. The first thing is learning how to recognize the signs of burnout. That's really because most people don't realize they're there until they're deep in it. Like when I hit burnout in the military, I didn't realize that was what it was until I was hospitalized, because I was, had suicidal ideations and I had a plan to end my life. It wasn't until I was forced to stop and hit that breaking point where I really realized, oh my goodness, this is what burnout is. This is deep in the pit of it. And it's a lot harder to get yourself out of it once you're there. So familiarizing with yourself with the term burnout, learning how to recognize signs of it, starting to not want to go to work, starting to not want to engage in, you're just so tired at the end of the day that you don't want to see your friends. You don't want to talk to your kid. You don't want to do the activities that you once loved. You're starting to feel lethargic. You're starting to have sleep problems. Anxiety is starting to be more prevalent. You're starting to constantly be preoccupied with My to-do list never ends. There's no way out. Those kind of thoughts, those kind of feelings, physically and mentally and emotionally, those are some of the warning signs and the red flags that you're headed towards burnout. An overall negative perspective about life, about your job, all of that. When you start to see that, hear that, feel that, it should start flashing in your brain like burnout. This is a warning sign of burnout. I'm either on the brink of it or I'm already in it, and I definitely need to make a change. Once you hit that point, I always tell people, cancel everything on your schedule that you possibly can to give yourself a break. Like, bring yourself to a full stop. Take a day off if you can, take a weekend off if you can, take an hour off if you can on a daily basis. You know, the smaller the chunk of time, the longer the amount of time I would recommend doing it. And ask yourself, how am I living? Is this productive? Is this moving me forward? Where am I at with my satisfaction level on the wheel of life? It's an exercise I give my clients and my students. Really do a full evaluation of how you're approaching life and ask yourself if maybe there's a different way. At that point, you should have created enough space between you and the problem that you can go, maybe I need to exercise more. Maybe I need to spend some more time with my significant other. Maybe I need to take a week off and take a vacation. Maybe I need to fully reevaluate my career. If you're burned out with money, maybe I need to seek help from a financial counselor or set a better budget to, relieve some of the pressure on myself. But you can't have that kind of a perspective to be able to do an evaluation of your life until you create some space. So first, recognize the warning signs of burnout. 2, step back, create space to be able to look at your life through a clear lens. And then you can start picking apart and maybe possibly make changes if they're warranted and possible.
And I agree with being able to free up your schedule. I have a revolving schedule with my coaching business where people can schedule whenever they want. There's like a 2-hour limit beforehand. But if I don't want to meet with people, I can just close off the calendar for that day or for a week. And I know I'm going to get the work done just because there's so many time slots available. But if I want to take a day off, I can, where I have that freedom to do that. And if I had a regular 9-to-5 job, I wouldn't be able to do that, where I can choose, okay, I need a break versus I have to go into work. That was the lifestyle that I wanted to create with this business was, okay, how free can I be? How much time can I have? And I love the work I do. So I'm not constantly taking work off. I would say maybe once every 3 months, I take maybe a day or 2 off back to back, where I say, just relax, just sleep, take a nap, go out, do something different that's away from the office, that's away from podcasting, editing, meeting with clients, because that repetitive nature is going to lead to that type of burnout. And when you were describing burnout in the beginning, it was almost like synonymous to what depression is, where it's like we're feeling down, we're feeling sad, all of these different emotions, which basically is what depression. Would you say that depression and burnout are the same thing, or do they have some differences so people can say, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm burned out?
So on that note, I do have to be mindful because I'm not a licensed mental health counselor. So I'm not in a position to be able to diagnose clinical conditions like what depression is classified as. But I've done a lot of research on it. My thesis for my master's in performance psychology was on burnout. So I can speak to the general definition of both in that they do look very, very, very similar. I've had clients come to me from a coaching perspective going, I don't know if I'm burned out. I don't know if I'm depressed. And I usually will defer to the higher level of licensure. And I'll say, go have a session with a counselor. Like if you genuinely feel like there's no meaning to your life, there really is no way out. Like absolutely, if you are that deep in burnout, that is the point I hit when I was hospitalized, was that there was no line to be drawn between burnout and depression because I was depressed because I was burned out and the overlap was there. So I was not supported by coaches. I was supported by therapists and psychiatrists and licensed mental health professionals to bring me up from a level of what is dysfunctional into a level of, okay, I'm functional now, but I'm still burned out and have like a funky relationship with work. Like my belief system around work and money and success is something that I know it's going to keep me stuck in this cycle of getting burned out, getting depressed, getting burned out, getting depressed. So then once you're in that functional state, then you can start working with a performance coach or like a career coach working on developing healthier relationship with work. You can still do all of that work with a licensed mental health professional. of course, like a counselor or a psychiatrist. But that's how I always describe it, is like, if you are feeling depressed, go seek the help of a licensed mental health professional, get diagnosed, get the support that you need to take you from that level of dysfunction to functional, and then start building from there. Until you're in a place where you really are feeling like a healthier perspective towards yourself, a healthier perspective towards life, it's really, really hard to work on boundary setting or asking for time off at work or any of the things that you really need until you're in a place with a firm leg to stand on, I suppose. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense to me. This is just so the audience can kind of get a good understanding. Burnout, depression, right? And I have many clients that actually have a therapist and me. Absolutely. So it's not just me. And I wrote a whole blog article on this, therapist versus life coach, mindset coach. Totally different, right? And sometimes people think they need a therapist, but they should really have a life coach, and vice versa. They get a life coach and they really need a therapist. I do break down in that blog, that article, what do you need, right? And then to kind of evaluate, all right, maybe I should go in for a consultation with a therapist, see if this is what I need. And then the same thing with a life coach. You can go in and you can get a consultation with them and see if that's what you need. Love and that. You're going to resonate with someone. You might resonate with both of them, and you might hire both of them.
Worked with both at the same time as well. It's been tremendous. I saw a meme once that it was absolutely the truth. It was like, maybe you're not depressed. Maybe you just hate your job, Yeah. And it's true. Like maybe you're not depressed. Maybe you're just in a toxic relationship, and seeking support and having consultations from professionals who kind of specialize in the various areas can give you a tremendous amount of clarity.
Yeah. And it's that clarity that I think many people are looking for, because they're kind of lost in the fog of their brain, and all their ideas and all their emotions are just kind of jumbled together, and they are trying to untangle them. Is quite a lot of effort if you're doing it by yourself. If you have someone to facilitate that process, therapist, coach, that's going to make your life a little bit less stressful. Because when we're doing something by yourself, that's a lot of work, regardless of what you do. For example, let's use gardening. If you had a big garden, let's say you had an acre garden, it's a lot of gardening, number one. Number two, you have to weed the garden. You have to water the garden. You have to, of course, when the garden flourishes, you have to go pick up all the produce from the garden. And if you're one person, that's going to be a lot of work. But if you have a team of people with one goal, with one common goal, to make sure this garden is cared for, then you're going to say, all right, I feel better, right? I have a team helping me out. I can get this quicker. I can get this done quicker. And the garden is just that analogy of the mind, right? The mind can flourish, the mind can be that garden. And we have to take care of how our mind is. So if our mind is not in a healthy state of mind, where we're down and out, we're burned out, depressed, whatever it be, we have to be cognizant and aware, bring awareness to how we're feeling, how we're acting, and say, you know what, I need to make some changes in my life. What do I do? And I think sometimes when people get into that type of thinking, where they're like, I need to make a change in my life, and they just have those friends around them, that peer group saying, you'll be okay. And then you kind of just hang out with those people, but those people are not necessarily bringing you up. They're either keeping you still or they're bringing you down. And those are going to be those toxic type of relationships. And I wanted to touch base with you on the difference between a toxic relationship and a relationship that is there to nurture you, like bring you up and say, hey, you have so much more to give. I understand you're going through a hard time. I can help you, versus someone saying, hey, maybe can I borrow $10? And maybe you're struggling. It could be talking negative about you or about a family member or a relationship. There's so many different things that negative or toxic people can do. But I wanted to get your point of view on the difference between toxic people and then I guess people who are going to be more positive and optimistic.
That is such a fantastic question. I was literally just having this conversation last night about a boundary that I needed to set in my own life, because a friendship became toxic before I even realized what had happened. So this is something I'm living right now. So I love that you asked this question. For me personally, and what I teach my clients, pay attention to how you feel when you hang up the phone or when you're done spending time with that person. Do you feel uplifted, inspired, motivated? Not necessarily positive or negative. I don't like to put positive or negative judgments on anything, but Do you feel uplifted, inspired, motivated to move forward? Are you seeing the world through a light, energetically light space, right? Like versus feeling heavy, or like you're preoccupied, or like you took on someone else's problems, or maybe you were happy in your relationship and then that person said something to you or projected their own beliefs onto it. So now you're questioning your relationship when previously you weren't. So it's really about paying attention to how you feel when you're finished with the interaction with someone. That's like learning how to trust your intuitive nudges. That's really the number one indicator of whether a relationship is uplifting for you or whether it's leaning in the toxic direction. Because everybody has different toxic people, all have different strategies, right? Some people might call you 5 times a day and they're really kind of trampling your time boundaries. They want a lot of your energy. They want a lot of your time just to have, but they're not necessarily saying toxic things to you. They just want so much of your time that it kind of gets in the space and takes away from you being able to keep your life pretty balanced. But then there will be people where if you're telling them about your new business venture, they'll totally always have something negative to say about it. There'll be, if you're trying to eat healthier, there will be those people who are always like, what are you doing that for? Just come on, eat the cake or have the drink. Another big boundary, someone is trying to limit their alcohol intake or make just healthier choices for themselves in general. And there are those members of the social group that are like, no, man, just one more drink, just have the shot. You'll be fine. Like, don't be a wet blanket. So it's learning, interacting with people, but paying attention to how you feel when you're done. Did you compromise on a boundary? Did you compromise on your schedule? Did you not do something that was important to you? Like, did you skip a workout? Did you skip a meditation? Are you just that? Yes, that. Those are the number one. How do you feel when you're done with the interaction?
And just to tack on a few more examples,
Yes.
I like to use 2 examples, one of a cup and then one of a bank account. So the cup is going to be, is your cup full after you speak with them, or is your cup empty after you speak with them? And the same concept with a bank. Pretend you had $100 in the bank. After you spoke with them, do you feel that $100 depreciated or it went up in value? Yeah. Right. So it grew. Sometimes we don't make ourselves aware of that. If someone takes from us, we might be that giving type of person, right? My great grandmother, she was that type of person. She would give if she didn't even have it. I find that takers are going to keep on taking till there's no more, and givers will keep on giving until they have nothing left.
And that's where boundaries come in.
Exactly. To create those boundaries where it's like, all right, I understand. I want to be a giver. I want to be helpful, and I want to see you do good too. But I also have my own life. I have my own family that I have to take care of. Sometimes it can be difficult for those people to create those boundaries because they have that peer acceptance. I want to be accepted. And it might be the same thing, going with that drink. I want to be accepted with my peer group, my friends. And if I don't hang out with them, if I don't have this one more drink or this shot, they're going to look down at me and I'm not going to have any friends. And now they're all alone. And then they have the idea of being alone in their head. And us as humans, we are people who need to be around people, right? We live and we thrive off people. There's been studies of people who would go in isolation for a week with no interaction with the outside world, no phone calls, no television. They had books and things like that, but they couldn't have any interaction with other people. And after the 3 or 4 day mark, they started to go stir crazy, where they're like, I need that interaction. So we are interactive beings. And I think our brain knows that at a subconscious level, where it's like, we don't want to lose that. And even if the person is toxic, we just basically allow it, we just deal with it. But what would be an alternative to, instead of having those toxic people, but maybe starting to find better people to replace them? I don't know how you want to put it, but that's kind of the question I'm going down. How can people find better people to have in their life?
It starts with your relationship with yourself. You have to think about what in you is lacking. Why are you looking for acceptance from people who don't seem to have your best interest at heart? Like a truly supportive friend who wants your best interest at heart, has your best interest at heart, right? Using the drink example, you say, I'm doing a 30-day cleanse, no alcohol, so I'm not going to be drinking tonight. A supportive friend will go, wow, that either I couldn't do that, more power to you, or, what made you do that? Like, tell me about it. What is this cleanse that you're doing? What are you hoping to get out of it? The other person might still have their cocktail while they're listening to you share why you're doing this cleanse and what you want to get out of it, but they're supportive. Even if it's a different decision from what they might be making, they're still going to be supportive of it, right? But what in you is looking for acceptance from people who don't have your best interests at heart? So there is a period in my boundaries course and with my private clients, they all end up going through this. People pleasers, givers of the world usually are surrounded by takers, because takers are always going to pick up what gets put down. It's the way it is. Takers attract givers, givers attract takers, and the world keeps rotating on its axis. But when the givers finally have enough and they go, I don't want to be surrounded by this anymore, they have to step back. And there's not necessarily a period of isolation, but there may be a period of loneliness. Realizing that being alone is not threatening. It's not a bad thing. It's not something that will kill you. It is time and space for you to build your relationship with yourself and give yourself what you were looking for from your peer group: unconditional acceptance, self-love, confidence, standards, boundaries. Working on that stuff alone, that is what builds your self-esteem and builds you to the place where you go, okay, this is what I'm actually looking for in a peer group. This is what I want to get out of socializing with people. You have to know what you're looking for before you can start attracting it, or actually, you can't go after a goal if you don't know what the goal is, right? It's the same thing with socialization as it is with a weight loss goal or with an income goal or a career goal.
And I find that being alone brings a certain power to you, where it's like, we don't need someone to make us happy. We don't need someone to accept us. We do that ourselves. What we can do at that point is we bring in people into our lives that embellish what we're already doing. So if we're working on a goal, we bring people who are going to embellish that. So they are supportive. They're going to be nurturing, caring. And it's not so much that we need them. It's just that they're there and that's the type of person they are, versus someone who's going to be there and bring us down. Because if you have the power to be alone and to be okay with who you are and what you're doing, then you're, in a sense, dangerous, because you can do anything, right? You have that power. At that point, you can delegate who you have in your life. You don't have to have the high school friends that don't help you anymore, or your childhood best friend, neighbor, whatever. Sometimes people grow apart, and that's just life, where sometimes someone goes down a different path and it's not the path that you want to be on. And just because you have walked that path with them to a certain point, it doesn't mean that you can't say your goodbyes and be cordial when you meet each other. Many people get attached to a relationship. This is my best friend since I was 3. I'm not saying that you can't keep those friends, but at the same time, you have to do some introspection, some deep introspection. Is this person really going to be on that same path that you're walking on now? Because if you have a goal, there's going to be certain things that you have to do to reach that goal. If that person doesn't want to do those things too, then they might not be the person that's going to go along all the way to the end of your journey. So you might say, I bid you adieu, but it's filled with love, it's filled with care. And that care is not only for them, it's for you too. Because you don't want them to go on a journey that they don't want or they don't like. You just understand, okay, we went this far, but I don't hate this person. It's just that I understand now there's a new boundary created where we can still be friends. We can talk every once in a while, but not in the sense of being toxic, where they're calling me every day and they're just trying to catch up, but I'm working toward my goal, toward my dreams. So creating that boundary is going to be essential, especially for people you've had in your life for a very long time. So if I can, from you, Sarah, can you please give us a few last words of wisdom? It could be anything you want to say about what I said, or how people can find you, of course.
Yes, just real quick, spinning off of one last thought to like tack on to what you just said. Letting relationships naturally evolve and fall away is a part of life. Everyone's path's not going to be like this. Sometimes they go back, sometimes they come together. That is what life is. Instead of focusing on, once you realize a relationship is maybe toxic or not lifting you up and pushing you towards your goals in the way that you would want, it doesn't always have to be a big, uncomfortable conversation with basically like a breakup conversation with your friend. You can, little boundaries that you can start to implement into your conversations are not picking up the phone, not responding to text messages as quickly, not engaging in conversations, or very clearly saying, look, this conversation that we're having is not very productive, so let's keep it in a direction that is, more uplifting. Starting to implement those kinds of boundaries that are based on just self-love and your own goals and has nothing to do with the other person. The other person is going to either get on board or they're going to fall away. Give them that choice. Give them that freedom to make the choice to either grow with you or to step away because they want to stay in their own comfort zone. So boundaries for yourself. It doesn't have to be a breakup conversation. It doesn't have to be, this friendship's not working for me anymore, let's take some time apart. Just start implementing your boundaries and give the other person the freedom to make the decision that they want to make. That's been the number one thing that I've learned in my own relationships and that I help other clients come to as well. It removes a lot of the pressure and angst around the transition from being surrounded by toxicity to being surrounded by more anabolic, uplifting energy. As far as finding me, you can follow me. My number one platform that I use is Instagram. It's at Sarah.Falciani is my handle. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I have my own podcast, The Audacity Academy. You can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere. But if you want to find all of that, just go to my website, sarahfalciani.com, and there's links to everything.
Perfect. And I do encourage people to check all her information out. It will be in the description box below. So her website, Instagram, I encourage you to follow her to stay up to date with what she's doing, because having someone on your side who has been to that rock bottom per se, who has been down and out and burned out, they have a good understanding of how that feels and how to navigate out of that. So having someone who's experienced it is going to be wisdom in your pocket. And so Sarah's going to be a valuable asset to you and to your future. So I encourage everyone to reach out to her and see what she can do for you. And while you were saying that last thing, I thought about something that was so profound. If you show me your friends, I can tell you your future, where your friends have such a huge impact on who you are, who you will become. So surround yourself with people who are going to push you in a positive way per se, or push you to be better, and not so much keep you stagnant. Because the one thing that we don't want is to remain in our comfort zone for a prolonged period of time. And if you find that you're in that comfort zone, get a coach like Sarah. You can even reach over to reardenconcepts.com. It's my website, and you can get some help, right? Get some coaching to get out of that comfort zone into a growth zone, to a better place and a better life. Thank you so much, Sarah Falciani, for coming on coaching this session. It was a huge pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.